Well, a warm welcome to everyone who's joined us here in the chambers this evening, and it's very nice to see my colleagues again. We just finished our Committee of the Whole meeting earlier, and so I am now officially calling to order the Kalamazoo City Commission Business Meeting for Monday, March 4th, 2024, and our first order of business is roll call. Clerk Borley.
Commissioner Cooney.
Present.
Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Decker?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Pradle. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. Motion passes. Well, we are honored this evening to have the Reverend Mary Austin here from the First Congregational Church, and I will be asking her to come forward to provide us with the invocation and ask if those of us here would stand for the invocation and remain standing as we go through the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Reverend Austin.
Thank you. Let us pray. Divine God, source of all that is, creator of all, known to us by many names, we pause in your presence to set down the burdens of the day, settling into this time and place. We let go of unfinished tasks, half-completed phone calls, the people who got too little of us today and the people who asked too much. We give you thanks for our city and its leaders, for all who live here and work to make it better. We are grateful for each place where children and adults learn from skilled teachers, where art and music flourish, where people receive care for mind and body, where laughter rings out and friendship flourishes, and every place where the city's beauty is evident. Tonight we pray for the work of this gathering, that all that happens here would be guided by the greatest wisdom and the deepest compassion, building up the bonds of community. May all who speak and all who listen do so with passion and respect, mindful of the diversity of our city. May justice and empathy flow through the proceedings. May there be courage and understanding. And at the end of this night, may the people of Kalamazoo know that their leaders care. And may our leaders leave with a sense of accomplishment in decisions made, plans crafted, moving us always forward, we ask, to a place that serves all in our city. May each person here rest well at the end of the night and wake up renewed to serve you and each other. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you again, Reverend Austin. I appreciate that. Commissioners, you have in front of the agenda for the evening. Are there any items that are on the consent agenda that you would like to have moved to the regular agenda? Thank you, Commissioners. Don't see any. Is there anyone in the chambers here who would like to move an item from the regular agenda? The consent agenda, G, to the regular agenda? All right, seeing no request, the agenda stands as. Manager Ritzma, communications.
I have no communications, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Now is an opportunity for public comments, so you can comment on any item that is important to you, and you'll have an opportunity for 3 minutes to provide your comments to the City Commission. Please state your name and whether you live in the city.
My name is Jeff Wiseman. I live in the city. I'm here tonight for the same reason I was here a couple weeks ago, and for the same reason that I make a lot of phone calls with no response. I was sent a letter from Sergeant Elwan. I'll read it to you real quick. I received your concerns and will check with the abandoned vehicles. Your downtown CPO is CPO Brower, and he will, and other officers have been doing a lot of documented foot patrols along the Burdick Mall areas. Officers have also been doing bike patrols along Kalamazoo Avenue at the Anyway, I have called several people about abandoned cars, and I talked to Brower. He was real excited. He thought he could do something, and nothing's been done yet. And I talked to him, probably a month or 2 months ago. This letter is dated December 6th, which means that I was calling about abandoned cars before December 6th. My main concern right now is the cars on Burdick Street by the Mission. I talked to Pastor Brown, and he also has a problem with those cars on Burdick Street. They're sleeping there overnight. There's cars that have been parked there since and not moved since December. There are cars that he's complaining about that are blocking his driveways. They're throwing their trash out, they're not taking care of anything, and I don't understand why those cars can't be ticketed and towed. I'm thinking that public safety would like to do something about it, but I think somebody higher up, for some reason, is telling them, no, back off. But we have a problem on Kalamazoo Avenue with the homeless, with their trash, with their lack of concern about the environment, and I don't understand why something can't be done about that. I talked to you, Mayor, about it. I never got a call back about it. Is this an issue that people are afraid to address? I don't understand it. Parking enforcement in the city is terrible right now. There are abandoned cars, there are cars parked everywhere in the neighborhoods that shouldn't be there. And my time's running out and I have a lot more to say. I wish somebody could do something instead of just telling me to do it and then I see nothing done. And I blame it on you people, the lack of enforcement, the lack of follow through, and the lack of commitment to the citizens of Kalamazoo.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. My name is Garrett Lennon with Premier Lawn and Snow. I'm sorry I'm going to read off of my paper here because I don't want to miss any important information. I'm Garrett with Premier Lawn and Snow. We are a small local company. We've been maintaining the cemeteries here in the city for the past 4 years. Approximately 50% of our staff is dedicated to maintaining these cemeteries. With the mild winter we have experienced, we have had staff working these times to complete the spring work so we would be ahead of the game, so to speak. We have completed approximately 90% of the spring cleanup in December and January. During these years, we have built a very good working relationship with your staff. They have been very responsive, informative, and pleasant to work with. The reason I am here tonight is that I believe a valuable piece of information was accidentally dropped. Back in November, we received a letter of intent to renew our mowing contract. We submitted our updated pricing, which did include approximately a 2% increase from 23 due to rising labor costs. In the past few years, we typically get a response back from the city the first of the year after everything has been approved by the commission here. However, this year was different. On February 22nd, I realized that we had not received a response on this, so I reached out to see when we would see the extension. I received a response back by text message that the city was going to run a pilot program of bringing this cemetery mowing back in-house, and that the purchasing was supposed to have provided us a letter. We did receive a letter 4 days later, dated February 26th. I do not blame the city for attempting to handle the mowing in-house. The issue that I have is that in our industry, our larger seasonal contracts are typically secured in December and January, as you may be aware. We passed over multiple opportunities to submit bids on some of these contracts due to our staff being dedicated to servicing the city's cemeteries. I am asking the commission tonight to consider extending our contract for one more season to allow us enough time to fill the void with our staff. If this is not a feasible option, I am asking, would you consider paying 90% of the spring cleanup work that we've already completed? I do understand that we performed this work without having a signed contract. However, when we received a letter of intent to renew, we decided to proceed with the spring cleanup work. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, City Commission. My name is Ryan Smith, and I am a resident of the Edison neighborhood. I am also representing Southwest Michigan Democratic Socialist, and I was told that this meeting was going to be talking about housing, especially after the last one. We raised some issues about ARPA funding, and it was mentioned during the presentation that 27% of ARPA funding was already going to housing. And when they bring up the programs it's going into, one of them was like for transition from housing, low-income housing to other low-income housing. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing, but I think we should be looking more focused projects that directly impact everybody. And if we are going to build more affordable housing, it should be at least 80% below the median income, which is about $46,000 in Kalamazoo. And not to mention, we have a housing for all millage. Funding needs to be spent for that. We have plenty of empty vacancies of buildings or plots of land. I just don't see why we can't use that funding to buy a plot of land and build affordable housing. I just think something needs to be done. And, I serve the House list every Friday, and it's always the same stories. It's always very difficult for everybody. And, I just want to see a change for the better. So, and I want to see us actually commit to helping everybody that's a Kalamazoo resident, no matter if they have a house or if they don't, because they all live here. And if we want to take care of the trash, if we want to take care of all the things that are side effects of it, we have to take care of the core issue. So that's why I just came here to say, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Yes, next, please.
Hi, my name is Tina. I live in Kalamazoo in Southtown neighborhood on Lake Street. I have owned my home for 36 years. I live in the neighborhood that floods all the time. The streets flood out, deep standing water that floods and then sits for at least 4 days. We can't get in or out. A lot of our water comes up from the storm drains, which the city owns. And it comes up in the streets. The city has never cleaned them out. I'm from here. I know they haven't. I have a lot of people that work for the city of Kalamazoo growing up. Storm drains have never been cleaned out. They flood the streets and then it backs up the storm sewers. We also have a high water table in our area. And you're still trying to destroy our last natural green space, Lake to Stockbridge. It's the wrong thing to do. It will cause more flooding. Your longtime homeowners, you will flood them out even more. If you've never experienced flooding, you can only imagine how the sinking feeling in your gut, watching the rain pounding down in the streets, watching the water coming up at both ends of your street. 2 to 3 times a year, guys, come on. Then it comes up in your basement. of your home, inch by inch, foot by foot. You wonder when it'll stop. You wonder what damage it will do. Worrying and waiting to see when the water will recede. We are in a severe climate change. Flooding will become worse. The next flooding episode will be more extreme, especially if you take that last green space away. You will purposely drown our homes out. I've been asking this for 7 years, guys. 7 years, ever since December 18th of 2017, when KVCC built their growing field, which now makes us flood 2 to 3 times every single year. We've already flooded once. Your ponds are up to the top. They're gonna flood again, which is gonna flood out the whole neighborhood. Crosstown, Vine, Lake, Stockbridge, Park, Burdick. Do you not care? We are families that live there. We struggle to make ends meet. You raised our water bill. Water we can't drink. Mine smells like bleach all the time. You put so many chemicals in it. You want us to drink it. And now you want to build on a floodplain when you have a flat land at 322 Stockbridge that the city owns. You could build right there. You could build affordable homes right there. All affordable homes, not 5 affordable homes, and the rest are $1,400 to $1,200 a month. But you want to build in a floodplain. I don't understand why. You never did an environmental study. We have Belgian bats and all kinds of bats in there. It's a swampy area. We have a lot of wildlife that you will kill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. If you want to talk, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Kay, and I was listening to the housing development meeting earlier, and I want to say that we need more than the bare minimum. Just like the shelters, Anderson, every time you mention the shelters and that there's space, there's not really space. Those shelters take the bare minimum. The shelters are traumatic. The shelters, they don't accept people with pets. They don't accept people with mental illness. These housing options, it's not true that it trickles down. We see this with the Alice statistics. The gap between black households struggling and white households struggling is more than half. It is not real that the market will trickle down. That is not the conditions of systemic racism in our system. It exists in a natural process. When she comes up here and she talks about, you know, we need these luxury apartments so that people can build up. We're not building up responsibly this way. We're allowing investors to come in. We're allowing people to come in when we have community here that needs to build asset, that can't even begin to build asset, let alone live in a luxury apartment. We're talking 30, 40 years down. We're in a housing crisis. We need to start from the bottom. Those AMIs are ridiculous. It is not real. It is not real. I want to stand here and tell you that you're disconnected. Some of you are so far gone. You called the Arcadia gentrification a happenstance when you know the housing crisis. You work. You're so involved in housing. They talk about Kalamazoo Avenue being a mess. Well, everybody got pushed out of Arcadia and people are in a worse situation. Like I said earlier, I've been there. I know. I've been there when 6 or 7 cops show up and people have no options, nothing. When you're in the streets, you don't have nothing. You get continuously raped, continuously robbed, continuously chased by KDPS, and there is no resources. Don't sit here and say that this housing situation that was just presented is something that is worth to black and brown people, because it is not. It is not real. The AMIs that she was talking about, 80%, that's laughable. For the Alice statistics, we are doing nothing. Those statistics have not changed since 2018. So nothing is being done. What you present here today, nothing was being done because those statistics have not changed. As a matter of fact, they're about to get worse because COVID is on the rise and there is nothing, no eviction moratorium, nothing in place for people to fall back on. Nothing but charity. That's what you all depend on. Take that charity Band-Aid off and realize that that is not enough. That is just keeping an appearance, a good appearance for some of you that do charity work that help the people who can receive that help. But there's people who cannot receive the help. And you know what that takes? That takes real heart. That takes courage. And that takes value to tell somebody that you're going to help them if they can't give you anything back, regardless of their situation, and not judge them, not see them as less than because of the situation that they are generationally cursed to be in. Okay?
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Chase Platty. I'm a Kalamazoo resident. I've lived here my whole life. This is my second commission I've ever been to. And I would like to speak for my community when I say that the decision by Mayor Anderson to move to approve the Arcadia Festival site proposal is unacceptable, and it goes against what the community wants and what is best for the people who live in Kalamazoo and use the public space. And it will be on the record that even after 90 minutes of public comment and petitions urging you to vote no on this proposal, you still voted yes. There is no time to waste in prioritizing the housing crisis in Kalamazoo. And 191 units in pre-development for the next 1 year, it is not even close to enough. There are thousands and thousands of homeless families. There's at least 560 kids and KPS students who are homeless. At least, probably, the real number is probably at least 1,500 to 2,000 homeless KPS students. This is unacceptable. And the current housing plan is not addressing these issues. The housing proposed is insufficient to address the crisis that is going on. So please show your commitment to this housing crisis by listening to your constituents and their needs, and please respond to the email from my colleague Tristan about setting up a meeting with the leaders from We the People who are eager to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Toby Hannah Davies. I spoke earlier about the beautiful housing that was for people at 80% of median income and 60%, but we didn't talk about dollar amounts at all when Sherilyn Parsons was giving her great overview of all the housing. So I just want to make it real. If you are at 60% of our Kalamazoo County area median income, the 2023 dollar amounts for that amount, which Sherilyn labeled, as HUD does, very low income. The dollar amounts as for one person at 60% is $38,520. And for a family of four, 60% means $55,020 for a family of four. That's the income necessary to be at the 60% level. At 80% level, for one person, that dollar amount is an income of $51,360 for the year, and for a family of four, 80% of median income here is $73,360. I just wanted to make sure you all get what those 60 and 80% numbers mean, whether they're labeled very low income or low income. What it really means, it's still very high for many people in our community. I also have a very good announcement. The Tiny Houses of Hope, which I am honored to be part of the planning committee for, they're planning to have the groundbreaking, and you all are invited, encouraged to be there with a shovel, which we'll have ready for you. And this is a great date, 4/4/24 at 4 p.m. April 4 at 4 o'clock. We hope you can all be there. Gwendolyn and her crew are stepping out in faith that everything that is almost finalized will be ready by then. Thank you for planning to be there.
Thank you.
My name is Shona Espinoza, and I'm a resident of Kalamazoo County. Prado and Anderson, y'all should be ashamed of yourself the way that y'all acted at the last meeting and making it seem like it was more important to develop downtown instead of giving into and making housing affordable, or even those that are out on the street. You say that you invested all this money into housing. If you did, why do we have a housing crisis? Why do certain complexes that you sit on the board look like that? You should be ashamed of yourself if you invested all that money and we're still in a housing crisis. Y'all need to start holding yourself accountable. Certain one of y'all need to stand up and be a leader and stop being followers to the rest of those that don't care about this community. You have support. Us as community is here to support you. Don't follow in line because that's what everybody else do. Stand up and be a leader. Demand what's right for this community. Don't sit there and just, okay, I'm gonna say yes or I'm gonna say this because your colleagues want you to or put pressure on you. Us as a community, we're here to support you. We want you to stand up and fight with us, not fight with those that want to help. You're standing on the side of those that don't care. Some of y'all are new, some of y'all been here longer. Those that have been here longer, y'all should be ashamed of yourself the way that y'all act and treat this community. It's more than just a paycheck. It's more than just an image. There's real people that live here with children. If y'all don't care about those that live here, y'all can't say y'all give a damn about these children. They are our future, and look how y'all treating them. Do better. Hold yourself accountable for the way that you continue to act and allow that your co-workers act and treat this community. It's more than just a paycheck. More than just white rich men live here. Do better. Would you want your children in this situation? Would you want your mother in this situation? Because we don't. Stand up and do better. Hold your colleagues accountable, especially those that are white parts.
Thank you. Next, please. Anyone else in the chambers that'd like to speak this evening? All right, seeing no one else, I just want to thank everyone that took the time, made the effort to come down here to provide public comments. And we are now on to F, public hearings. Manager Risma.
F1 is a public hearing to receive comments on an ordinance to rezone 1316 South Park Street from commercial to Live Work 1.
Is there a staff report on this item?
We have Bobby Durkee here if there are any questions.
Okay,
but he
thank
has
you.
no official presentation.
Thank you, Bobby. Any questions on this item from Commission? Commissioner Prado?
Sure. I'll just repeat a couple of the questions I asked last time, just in case people are chiming in again. So just wondering if you could just share a little bit about, the big bulk of the rezoning that occurred and just how we identified these just two entities that I guess were kind of missed in that process.
Yep. What Commissioner Prado is referencing, in September and October of last year, the Planning Commission and then the City Commission approved fairly comprehensive commercial rezoning that resulted in the reclassification of a few commercial zones into form-based live-work codes and existing and then renamed commercial codes. This vicinity on 1316 South Park is an area of town where there's houses, stores, kind of a transition area between the shopping and commercial area by Howard as you come up into Vine. So the live-work zone is called, there's a similar classification in the master plan for these zones that are residential, commercial, or mixed use. So all of the parcels around this one were rezoned to live-work 1 from a mix of commercial, office, or residential zones. And then the nature of this particular parcel and the next one, in that action there was almost 2,000 parcels rezoned. So after that action is approved, there's about 10 days legally until it becomes effective after a commission decision. So there's a work order to update the map, and the GIS administrator and IT updating the colors on the map identified 2 parcels that were missed in that. So since rezoning requires this noticing and all of this, we have to then move forward on these And the nuance for this one in particular is the CO zone is no longer in the zoning ordinance. So it's a zone that doesn't have standards.
And then just two questions, and I'm just asking this for both of mine. I recognize this is just the one South Park Street entity, but could you just speak to outreach that occurred to the actual property owners, neighboring property owners, and then also can you just share from the Planning Commission perspective if there was any public comment about the rezoning of these two parcels?
Through the rezoning, through this current rezoning process, yeah, because the one last year there was a lot of city outreach and then noticing. Any rezoning is mandated by the ordinance and the state act to notify somebody before it goes to the Planning Commission and neighbors within 300 feet, and then the same thing for the City Commission. And this one, a letter was sent to each property owner to notify them, hey, your property had been missed, staff is going to apply to rezone these parcels, you have any questions, and provided them information to the commercial zoning, and we have little one-pagers about some of these new zones. And then there was the notice for the Planning Commission, which went to neighbors within 300 feet and published in the paper, and then that was done again ahead of this meeting. And Friday, this property owner did reach out to me through our 311 process, and I was able to leave a message, and he sent an email today saying he received the information and was supportive of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durkee. Could you just remind us all again, anyone who's watching, what your title, what your position is?
Yep, it's Bobby Durkee, Assistant City Planner for the city.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from Commission for Mr. Durkee? Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. If there's anyone that wants to comment on this item, please come forward. You have 3 minutes. State your name, whether you live in the city. Seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing. The recommended action is a motion to adopt the ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Wilson. Any discussion, team? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you so much. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item E2. Manager Ritzma.
A public hearing to receive comments on an ordinance to rezone 107 Reed Avenue from CN-1 Commercial Local Neighborhood to RM-15 Residential Multi-Dwelling.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So this was the second property that was referenced in the rezoning, so really similar answers to any questions on this one. That said, though, any questions from Commission on this particular action? All right, seeing none, now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. If you have an interest in making a public comment, please come forward. Seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing. The recommended action is a motion to adopt this ordinance. Is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Cooney.
Support.
Supported by Vice Mayor Hess. Any discussion, Commissioners? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion is passed. Next on the agenda is item E3.
A public hearing to receive comments on the Second Amendment to the Kalamazoo Downtown Economic Growth Authority Development Plan and Tax Increment Financing Plan.
And I see we've got a team member here to talk about that.
We have our Economic Development Supervisor, Paul Thuringer, is going to give us a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson, Vice Mayor Hess, Commissioners. This is the Second Amendment to the DEGA Development and Tax Increment Financing Plan. At the DEGA board meeting on the 28th of December, the board voted to recommend approval of this Second Amendment. It specifically names and confirms millages subject to DEGA capture and adds language reflecting the recent a legislative amendment to the Brownfield Redevelopment Financing Act of '96, which authorizes TIF sharing agreements with entities like the DEGA. In all other respects, it ratifies the existing plan. Just to clarify, the district boundaries will not change. This is strictly a text amendment. Public notice was followed, given to all the taxing jurisdictions, the Kalamazoo Gazette, and posted in 30 conspicuous places. This amendment will not affect any residents, businesses, or landowners located within the DEGA. I also have the DEGA attorney, Jessica Woods, here if there are any other questions that I may not be able to answer.
Thank you, Paul. Questions on this action from commissioners? Commissioner Pradle?
In the summary, it just talks a little bit about how it more clearly defines the millages and what millages are used for, I guess, in the taxing. Can you speak to a little bit about like that component to it? I guess it said something about let's see, the taxing unit and the millages that are more clearly defined in the amendment, the second amendment.
Jessica? Thanks.
All right. Calling in the attorneys now, Commissioner Pradle.
Hello, good evening.
I guess can I clarify a little bit as well as just I'm kind of curious about why that was necessary, if it was just a little bit loosely identified before and this kind of buttons it down a little bit, or it's more clearly identifies the taxing millages that apply, or if you could speak a little bit about that.
Yep, I think that to say that it was loosely identified is a good way to put it before. Just to confirm, you are just clarifying and ratifying what has already been done over the past several years. You have always captured the DDA millage, and that is permissible by statute. It was present in one part of the plan and not part of another, and so this is really just a cleanup item to ratify that. But it's absolutely legal. We just wanted to make sure that it was in all the places it was supposed to be.
Gotcha. And could you speak a little bit more about Act 90 and like those changes and how that applies into the Second Amendment as well?
Certainly. So that is the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Act, and there were several significant changes. The more sort of exciting changes have to do with housing, which you're probably going to hear a lot about because I know that's an important issue for you. One thing it did that got less attention was it expressly permitted authorities such as the DEGA to share its capture with the Brownfield pursuant to tax sharing agreements if it's identified in the plan. And so as sort of a precursor to any opportunity to do that, we've just added some language that acknowledges that legislative change.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it, Attorney Woods.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, yes. Seeing no more questions, now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. If there's anyone in the chambers that wants to comment on this, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one, commissioners, there's no action recommended at this time. So I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Next, consent agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
Yes, the following items have been presented for approval, although item 8 is being asked to be postponed until March 18, 2024. So the first item is approval of a contract with Dale W. Hubbard Incorporated for disposal of hydro excavator spoils in the amount of $168,500. Next is the approval of a contract with Earthworks Lawn and Landscape for 13 and 26 frequency mowing in the amount of $168,760. Next is the approval of the cooperative purchase of emergency warning equipment for frontline patrol vehicles from Arrowhead Upfitters in the amount of $183,244.06. Next is the approval of a sole source contract with the Arts Council of Greater Kalamazoo for the administration and installation of murals and public artwork in the amount of $200,000. Next is the approval of a license and development agreement with Perfection Bakery Incorporated, Aunt Millie's, and the City of Kalamazoo for improvements to Southside Park and amend the capital improvement fund budget by $200,000. Next is the approval of an agreement with the Michigan State Housing Development Authority for a housing readiness grant in the amount of $50,000. Next is the approval and acceptance of utility easements from Redwood Kalamazoo, WQ Avenue, MIP2 LLC for water main installed as part phase 2 of the Redwood, Texas Township project. And finally, approval and acceptance of a public infrastructure right-of-way agreement with the Oakwood Bible Church as part of the Oakland Angling Intersection construction project.
Thank you, Manager Ritsma. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 7, postpone item 8 until March 18th, 2024, and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel. Supported by Commissioner Cooney. No discussion on these. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney. Yes. Commissioner Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
And Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we're on to our regular agenda. Manager Ritsma.
Item H1 is approval of a contract with SWT Excavating for non-copper water service replacement in the amount of $1,593,663.89. And we have our Public Services Director, James Baker, who's going to give a brief presentation about what this item is about.
Welcome, Director Baker. Nice to have you here.
Your Honor, thank you, City Commissioners. Just going to keep it, real brief. This is just another project delivery award for our continuous work as we move towards replacing all lead service lines in the City of Kalamazoo and Kalamazoo Township as well. This project was brought to you in part by a federal grant. So we received a federal grant for $1 million to perform this work. Did also want to note that this work will include smart meter installation, so we were able to coordinate lead service line replacement under this contract with smart meter installation. So smart meters will be going in at these addresses as well. This work includes about 120 homes. Those homes are in the northern area of the city, north side, but also the Stewart neighborhood. So those streets would be Conant Street, Stewart Street, Woodward Street, as well as Summer. So it's a few different neighborhoods, including the Fairmount neighborhood, North Side neighborhood, and Stewart neighborhood. Happy to answer any questions on it. Pretty straightforward project and continued focus to get lead out of our system through lead service line replacement. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Baker, and I appreciate your continued focus and energy on this very, very important task. Questions for Director Baker on this from Commission? Thank you, sir. Commissioner Pradel.
Just have a question. In terms of these folks who are bidding in on these projects, what accountability mechanisms and how does our team, assure that when work is done, that things are returned to as good a state as possible? Like, I guess better question would be what recourse or what should residents do if for some reason they feel like things haven't been left in satisfactory condition after the work has been done?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, this is one of our work items where this has a very personal impact to folks. This is work that's occurring, essentially in your front lawn. I will tell you that most of this work, and we're doing this work out currently right now on a different contract, but most of this work is handled with a excavation in the roadway over the water main, and then an excavation at the sidewalk. So most of the time, this work can be done without any disruption to your lawn. That doesn't always happen that way, but that's the goal, is that we actually attach the new copper line to the lead line, and then we pull it out, from being in the street. That being said, there is a restoration work that has to occur in the right-of-way space quite often. And depending on where the service is at, there could be restoration required too, like your driveway, for example. So this work has an inspector that's assigned to the work itself. Every one of these addresses includes a work order into our system, so we track it via work order. Every one of these addresses has to have a service card that comes back that gives us all the dimensions and all the details for the line. The inspection that has to occur includes, conditions before and after. Homes are also put on the filter. That's part of our inspection. Is this home on the filter? Did this home refuse a filter? So a filter is getting provided to every one of these homes as well. We're also required by Eagle to do that restoration in that long. So we make every effort to make sure that we are doing that restoration and that the customer is completely satisfied with the work that we are doing. But like anything, if the customer is ever unsatisfied with our work, please give us a call at 311 or 337-8000 if you're outside the city limits, and we'd be happy to get back out there and do this work. So the contractor has been a great contractor for us. We've got many projects that are underway and have been completed by this contractor. A lot of great work, and they're going to make it right. So regardless of what the concern is, let us know and we'll make sure that we correct it, we make it right.
I think it's helpful if people can call, 311 afterwards. I know there were some recent projects that were done not far from our house, and it looked great before winter hit, but then once the ground settles, sometimes you have sporadic places where there's a foot hole in the ground. And there was one that I just passed the other day when I was out walking with my kids, and there was it was in a yard with a little 1-year-old who was running around. And so, I was concerned about the kid accidentally falling in the hole. And so in those kind of instances, it's good to hear that it's just appropriate that people can call 311 and they take it seriously. So thank you.
Yeah, any kind of settling that happens where the compaction, is coming back after the spring, grass seeding, something like that. Any kind of issue anybody's got with any of the restoration, we'll be happy to come out and make that right.
Cool. Thanks, Director.
Thank you.
Yeah, good questions, Commissioner Priddle. Any other questions? I just had a comment, I guess, Director Baker. It seemed like our season for doing this work has actually been much extended due to the rather temperate weather conditions that we've had. There's crews working right now when it otherwise could be freezing and covered with snow. So a lot of that work is continuing. It's nice to see that. I do think that we'll have a situation where, especially when you're doing this work, during the winter, people will have to come back a little later on for that final finish and fill and maybe some final seating again. So I presume that is in their schedule. There's a lot of it happening right around my immediate neighborhood right now. I've seen, that's a January job, but there's probably going to need a little tweaking when it gets to April or something, seed time. So thank you. Now is the opportunity for anyone in the chambers here to comment on this item. If you'd like to come forward, please take advantage of this opportunity. Seeing none, the recommended action is a motion to approve. Commissioners, is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Cooney.
Second.
Supported by Commissioner Hoffman. Any discussion, Commissioners? Seeing none, Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradle.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next are reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, I have a couple of things this evening, since we're actually before 8 o'clock and not after 11, like the last couple of meetings. So, yeah, I just wanted to give a couple of shout outs to a couple of departments. First, Management Services, our finance department and accounting and all of that. We've gone through the budget process. It was approved in January, actually. We've received a few awards related to both the budget and our comprehensive annual financial report. So those are both from the Government Finance Officers Association, Distinguished Budget Award and Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting. And we've received a perfect score on a State Tax Commission assessment audit review. So our department is rocking there. As well as last meeting, you approved the DDA service agreement, and just recognizing the staff in management services that provided excellent customer service for the Downtown Development Authority and DEGA through the transition, which actually began, a couple of years, 2-3 years ago. So great work done by them, and appreciate Steve Vicenzi and his team. And then in our Community Planning Economic Development Department, they've been very active, and just a little stat for you. In the month of February, and you all know this, CPED had around 15 items approved by the City Commission related to this year's budget. So those included street vacations, liquor licenses, the Detroit Cannabis Project, Brownfield Plan amendments, and the things like that. So very active there as well. So just wanted to point out that work, and hope you all have a great evening.
Thank you, Manager. So that's very important. I know that oftentimes that's certainly not the thing that we talk about, is making sure that we do a good job on our audit. However, without that, we wouldn't be in the shape we're in. So maybe some of the less sexy work that happens, but critically important foundational work. And I'm glad we got team members that are really, really committed to making sure that we're doing the best job we possibly can there. So thank you for recognizing those folks. Clerk Borley, do you have a report tonight?
Yes, I do, Mayor. There's just one thing on my report, and it's for the official record that the City Commission has received a petition from some city residents regarding enforcement of quality of life issues, quality of life policing, and that's there in the agenda packet.
Thank you very much, Clerk Borley. Well, since you've started, I'm going to ask you to continue here. So we had a rather unique election experience this last time, and I think that the capability of our city staff has really shown through this process. It's not necessarily made things easier for the whole team. All the extended voting periods we're having, and working with other locations, other folks across the county. So I know I had a conversation with you about it, Clerk Borling, and I think everybody was breathing a deep sigh of relief that we don't have to turn right around and have a May election right now and do that all over again. But if you wouldn't mind just making a few comments about what it was, what did we have to do, and what happened, and was it successful just for this last election?
Sure. So as a result of Proposal 22-2, there have been a lot of changes to election administration in Michigan. This election, one of the big new features was early voting. The Constitution now mandates 9 days of early voting, starting the second Saturday before the election and going to the Sunday immediately before. And this has actually been, while it's been difficult, it also has been a great opportunity to collaborate with all of the clerks in the county and with the county clerk. The county clerk's office has taken the lead in this and has coordinated that. We've played a supporting role in that. And my office, so there were 4 early voting sites in the county. Any voter in the county in the participating jurisdictions, which was all but one, any of those voters could go to any one of those jurisdictions. And it's interesting in the numbers, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but people went to different locations. It wasn't always the closest one. You could tell by looking at the information, the precinct that the voters were registered in, and what early voting site they went to. So, people took advantage of being able to go to any one of those sites. So that was exciting to see. My staff actually provided the site supervision for the 2 sites in the city of Kalamazoo, which were at the Fetzer Center and at the Douglas Community Association. And kudos to them, Shelby Moss, Amanda McMillan. They spent a lot of hours doing that, getting ready for it. There was kind of a race to put this all together in terms of getting policies and procedures in place. Sometimes we didn't have all the direction we wanted, but this is where I think the experience of my staff shone. I think that things went very well, and also the professionalism of all the clerks in the county. We have a great team. We all work well together, so that worked really well. One of the other things that we were able to do for the first time with this election was completely pre-processing absentee ballots with the absent voter counting board. So the week before the election, we were able to start processing absentee ballots, not just opening the envelopes, but actually tabulating the ballots. And that was very well received by the workers on our absent voter counting board because it spread that work out over multiple days instead of having to have one long marathon day. It still ends up going late because we can't produce results until the polls close. We have drop boxes we have to get ballots from and so on. But they were able to start later and not make it quite such the long day. So that was very successful. That was kind of a game changer this time. And so we know we'll continue doing that, especially for the larger elections. But all in all, it went pretty well. And yes, my staff is trying to decompress now and get some rest, get some time off that they deserve.
Thank you very much, Clerk Borling. Approximately, I know I don't have the numbers here, but what percentage, more or less, is it about 2/3 are still voting absentee? It was a little less this time with a longer.
So we had, over the 9 days, we had approximately 200 city voters vote at the early voting sites. And then we had about 5,800 absentee voters cast ballots, whose ballots got processed and counted. And then we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,400 vote in person on election day. So still, more people favoring absentee voting. I'm not too concerned about the low number of early voters. Voter behavior tends to be something that is slow to change, right? People have habits. Elections don't happen that often. So, when you introduce a new process, it takes a little bit for voters to learn about it, learn what it is, and adopt it. So I expect that interest and participation to grow.
Thank you so much. So just a reminder for all of us, 5,800 absentee, 3,400 in person, roughly something like 2/3, 1/3, which means we are really moving to that absentee style of voting. So it was so important that we can start pre-processing those absentee ballots. Up until the past, big majority absentee can't start counting until the day of. So that's been a big help. But I just want to remind everybody, it's great, and the legislature can pass things and expand access and want to make sure people get an opportunity to vote, and that's great. But someone has to do that work, staff those opportunity places to vote for now over a week in advance. So it's our team that does that and organizes the pre-processing and all the other people that come in and help that are just really elections folks, right? And so I just give a ton of credit to this team, pulled that off without a hitch. And just a reminder, what other elections do we have this year, Clerk Borling?
So the next election will be in August, the first Tuesday after the first Monday. Don't have the exact date on the tip of my, the front of my brain right now. But it's the first Tuesday after the first Monday in August. That will be the statewide primary. And this is sometimes a point of confusion because people say, we just had a primary. The election we had last week was just for president. In August, that primary is for the other partisan offices like U.S. Senate, U.S. Rep, State Senate, State Rep, County Commission. This isn't partisan, but school board will be on there. You'll have some judge races, and well, I should say school board will be in November. They're not on the primary. But so you have other partisan offices, important offices that people will get to weigh in on, who will appear on the ballot in November.
And same process, absentee, 9 days early voting for both those elections, August and November, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's going to just fall to us, care about people voting, just to remind folks when those opportunities are coming up, and continue to publicize maybe in our city paper where those shared early voting places are as we get closer to that also. Thank you, Clerk Borling. Anything from you, Attorney Leal, since everyone's getting their chance this evening?
No, Your Honor.
All good. Okay, thank you so much. All right, now is the opportunity for commissioner comments. Is there anyone who would like to take advantage of that? Yeah, Commissioner Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to shout out the Monroe Brown Foundation and the Young Professionals Network for throwing an awesome event last week. The goal of the event was, it was a design pitch event where young professionals, either in college here in town or just starting their careers, were able to pitch ideas in order to help Kalamazoo retain its young talent. And not only were there some amazing ideas, but it was amazing to see that young people are getting involved in such a big, issue for us, and they're the ones that's going to be directly impacted by it. So, huge shout out to them for that event. Not only does that network promote individual growth, but it also promotes the growth of our city. So, just wanted to thank them for that.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Wilson. Anyone else that wants to make some comments? Commissioner Pradel?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to take a minute. This is kind of exciting news coming up here in Millwood neighborhood. The Millwood Neighborhood Association has not had an active group in a couple of years now. They had actually had a group of people get together last week for the first time in a while, try to start to reorganize the group. For those of you who don't know, Millwood is the largest geographic neighborhood in our city, and it's got the second largest population. So it's kind of unfortunate that they haven't had representation from the neighborhood with the neighborhood association. So they are actually having their board elections coming up on Tuesday, March 19th at 7 p.m. And so they have a group together. They are going to be doing it at the IBEW Union Hall that's at 3641 East Cork Street, but would really encourage people from the neighborhood to show up, support this core group of people who've been working really, really hard to get to this point to reconvene a neighborhood group. Want to just give them hats off for all that hard work to get to that point. Also wanted to thank the city manager's office. For those of you who are not aware, we have one of the best mock trial teams in the country, if not the best. They consistently win state competitions, national competitions, and they're right here from Kalamazoo Central. Go Giants. And so they actually, after our Crosstown facility shut down that the county leased, they had no space to practice in. And one of the reasons they're so good is because they practice in actual courtroom facilities. And so they were unable to work out something with the county with the transition to the new courthouse. So I connected with the city manager's office. The city manager's office actually worked it out, so they're actually practicing in City Hall chambers to prepare for the state and national championships. For those of you who don't know as well, City Hall chambers used to be a courtroom. So it's actually pretty appropriate to rehearse and practice in this space. As you can see, it used to be a courtroom. I wanted to make sure to share a thanks to you all for making that possible. I think it means a tremendous amount to those young people to know that this city believes in them and is willing to invest our time and resources to make sure they're successful. So thank you for making that possible. For those of you in the community who got one of these, we have this new City View publication. Really a great resource for communication. I'm really, really proud of us that we're doing this work because in many ways, if you're not on Facebook or something, you have no way to find out about things. And so a good example, this just hit mailboxes, and this is a segue to my next point. We have a bunch of major construction projects that started. how are you supposed to know where you're supposed to go or not go unless you got something like this? It's really awesome. It's got diagrams. It shows you like what directions it's going to go. It gives you ideas about detours to make. This is wonderful. This is great that we're doing this. So I just want to thank you for doing that. But it also is a great segue to thank our public services team. They have a heavy lift. They've got a lot going on, and we approved tonight non-copper lead service line replacements, which is a lot that they're doing there. But they have some pretty significant major construction projects, and you just imagine how much engineering goes in just to not the road replacement, but all the utilities underneath and sidewalks and everything that change with those as well. So thank you to Public Services for making that happen as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Commissioner Cooney?
Thank you, Mayor. So, yesterday's Kalamazoo Gazette, the headline, "Why Aren't Folks Outraged?" And that is from the superintendent of schools. And what he was talking about was that less than half of our black males in Kalamazoo graduated high school in 4 years. And later on in the article, 84% of black fourth graders are partially or not proficient in English, and 91.5% are partially or not proficient in math. 86% of black fifth graders are partially or not proficient in English, and 95% are partially or not proficient in math. 90% of black sixth graders are partially or not proficient in English, and 95% are partially or not proficient in math. How could we not be outraged in the city of Kalamazoo with the promise, with all the resources that we have, with 3 institutions of higher education, that we continue to allow this to happen in our city? So it just so happens that today we had a meeting of the Shared Prosperity Committee, and there were, on the agenda, there was a class from Kalamazoo Central. So 6 students and their teacher, I think I'm blocking on his name, it was Mr. Gottlieb, I believe. They came and they were going to speak on this. Even they didn't know that was going to be in the paper last night. And one of the things that they said was, poverty is the enemy of achievement. Poverty is the enemy of achievement. And when we have less than half of the families in Kalamazoo able to meet their basic needs every month, this is what we end up with. There was a doctor here, Dr. Arthur James, who was a prophet, and he spoke about this at least 10 years ago. He's gone now. And 10 years later, we're in the same position. I know that there's people in this city that are knocking themselves out, in the schools, in the community, doing everything they can to help these kids succeed. But something's missing. Something's missing. Maybe what we need is to bring people together, young people themselves, people that are working with these young people, experts, to talk about how we can have a collective response. Because if we don't respond to this, if 10 years from now this is the same situation, shame on us. I think the city could be the catalyst to bring people together to do this.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Vice Mayor Hess.
Indeed. Thank you for raising that up, Commissioner Cooney. I believe in the city too, and I believe that we are an education city, and I think we should focus on it. And hope our committee of the whole on the 18th, we'll feature our 3 presidents of our colleges coming to talk about how they're intersecting with the city. And we can talk about some of those things then too. A few things. Women's History Month. Thank you to all the women whose shoulders I stand upon. But a shout out to Caitlin Clark, who from the University of Iowa, who broke all scoring records for women's basketball in the NCAA for men and women yesterday. And she's igniting the road forward for females in sport. And then to all the women in our clerk's office, especially Shelby and Amanda, who really led the election effort. So happy Women's History Month. I attended a creamery event at the creamery this past Monday, and where they unveiled their My Car Share program. They have, where Matt Hollander, the developer, said that housing and transportation and childcare are all linked with poverty. And so they're trying to solve that transportation piece with an electric car that belongs to the creamery that you can check out for $5 for an hour or $50 for a day. And that's just one. And I'm just waiting for maybe other people in the city, other entities in the city who see this program, if we can make more transportation available to more people in the city. It's pretty cost effective and I think a great program. Let's see. Oh, well, Commissioner Pradel took my thing. I was going to do talk about City View. My goodness, read this. It's just, but they came together. The City View and my view from the curb came together. So please, if you haven't read your view from the curb, please do so. It's full of all kinds of things, especially sustainable stuff, a brush collection, hydrant flushing, spring cleanup, recycling your styrofoam and your electronics, disposing of hazardous items, your quarterly bulk trash pickup rules, and so on. And then it's just got to be household reading for us in Kalamazoo. So thank you for that. And thank you to all who put those 2 publications together and got them out to all the hands of the citizens of Kalamazoo. Lastly, today is March 4th. It's the only day in the calendar that's a command. I think we need to march 4th toward education. I think we need to march 4th toward housing for all. We need to march 4th for equity and inclusion. We need to march 4th toward a vibrant, healthy, thriving city, towards sustainability, and so much more. So Kalamazoo, let's march 4th.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Hess. I would just first of all, I guess just say it's a pleasure to work with everybody here. I appreciate it. It makes this not a perfunctory kind of a meeting that we have here, being able to share, deeply concerning and deeply held beliefs about the work we should be doing and the concerns that we face. And relative to your comments, I've had the opportunity to meet a few times with Dr. Slade, and I really appreciate the energy and effort he's making related to that issue. It's also interesting, as we discuss this, there can be a feeling that there's multiple emergencies that are all competing with each other. Housing, education, graduation rates, and that sort of thing. And I do think, Commissioner Cooney, that it's our job to clearly recognize how things are interconnected and how housing work, has a direct impact on this work. And obviously, we're not running the school system. We're not the only entity, but if nothing else around some of these issues, convening and bringing people together and figuring out where we can have the biggest effect in the portion of the work that we can have direct impact on. So I really appreciate that. On kind of a grander statewide scale, I don't know if people read Bridge magazine much. Do you see that one? It's online. It's free unless you want to donate, but it provides statewide news pretty decent news on all kinds of topics, and it just appears in your email box every day. So if you want, you just go and sign up for it, and you'll just get the reporting on a bunch of things. And as we were having some initial discussions on our economic development plan that we're working on now, which there were some discussions about that, getting that started here over the last, for the city of Kalamazoo, over the last week or so, is that some economists from U of M, has basically provided a report which Bridge reported on, and basically it's talking about Michigan as a whole and how we are sliding down in terms of per capita income in Michigan relative to other states. And the trajectory that we're on now, within a year or two, will be in the bottom 10 of all 50 states in terms of per capita income. And we did have, many decades ago, we were at the top 10. Lots of good paying union jobs drove a lot of that. So we are in the headwinds of that going on. And that's one piece. But of course, what that means is that as per capita income goes down, also do tax revenues go down, which means less resources to invest in programs that we care about, or even things like fixing our roads. And what can we do about it? And they just suggested a couple things, which, we're driven by kind of looking at best practice and what's going on. One of the things that they suggested was, what is driving per capita income these days? It's the knowledge-based economy. People have to do well in school and go on to college, hopefully, or certificate programs. That's where the good jobs are now, knowledge-based. We can't just depend on nothing wrong with it, but, a basic kind of a manufacturing base anymore. So that was one of the things, and I know that the governor has been focused on that is a critical component of changing this trajectory in Michigan, is exactly what you're talking about. Yes, it's great for each individual, but broadly good for us and for the state too. Knowledge-based economy. And another thing which is interesting in all these discussions we had was that this knowledge-based economy is primarily concentrated in urban centers. That's where it happens. People getting together, interacting a lot, kind of creative ideas and that sort of thing. And the other thing they suggested was that we need to focus, those of us that are responsible for our urban centers, on making sure they're also vibrant, safe, engaging, creative places for people to be. Watching the income, a lot of people, younger people, are still leaving the state to go other places, other communities. It seems like maybe more is happening, more opportunities. So that's just one of the things that we are thinking about, and I know there's some challenges about investing in our downtown park where people gather, but the real idea of having placemaking and identity and vibrancy and inclusivity and focusing on that creativity to subsequently continue to drive that, encouraging that population to stay here and come here in Kalamazoo. So we've got some headwinds, at the state level, and but like you mentioned all the time, Commissioner Cooney, we've got a lot of resources here in Kalamazoo also. And I say this, if we can't do something about this in Kalamazoo, it almost can't be done. And so, that's, I know, what drives everybody here. And I like the idea of, we can't do, everything's not an emergency, so we have to decide where we're going to be, what's the intersectionality of it all, and where can we be the most effective with our partners. And I hope we continue to have those kinds of conversations together. I think there's no other way, really, when it comes down to it. So I appreciate all of you. And I know Commissioner Decker had some family responsibilities this evening. Sorry for her absence, but looking forward to her being back next time. So thank you to the city team and all the work you do. This is what makes it happen. Thank you, Ms. Parsons, for being here at 5 o'clock and doing our long housing report and presentation. I love you, Kalamazoo. We're adjourned.